Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup, live from Dakar. We're not quite live because this is pre-recorded Sunday evening, but going out tomorrow. But I'm in Dakar, live from the very...
Oh, man, on the spot.
Exactly.
As it's Sunday, I mean, how is it in Dakar? I mean, it's nice that because it's Sunday night, and of course, Sunday. I mean, just hold on a minute.
You're so predictable. You're so...
Oh, that's a lovely red. That one. What are you drinking tonight?
Dakar lanyard. Look at this lovely Dakar lanyard.
Yes. And what are you drinking tonight? You got a nice drink there?
Well, I really enjoyed my fizzy water tonight, my sparkling water, fizzy water. Someone.
Anyway, we move on. How
digress.
was Dakar? How was
Dakar
this great?
It was amazing. It was an amazing, courtesy of Audi UK. They brought me out here, and it was just a bucket list sort of dream come true. Really, not a dream come true. That's a bit over the top, but it was something I've always wanted to do and see.
But I mean, you're there with Audi, and yet I noticed the only thing I saw you posting on social media was the film of a truck.
The truck.
You seem very excited by the trucks.
We're just crazy. These 10-ton trucks, four-wheel drifting into a corner and then just skimming the rocks, which is their apex, their curve, and then just doing that over and over again. 9,000 kilometers in 2 weeks. It's just not just the trucks, the bikes, the cars, the lightweight.
I know. It's just. But how close did you get to this incredible Audi machine? Did you still get to look inside it at all, or was it?
Yeah, I mean, literally to touch it, feel it, look inside it, the whole shebang. So it was quite. I was surprised at how gracious they were in letting anyone, not just the Audi, but anybody, sort of get very.
But it's intriguing. So it's got a 2-litre turbo engine that runs quite a lot of the time to charge, the all-electric drive. It's an amazing bit of science. But how much fuel does that need? It takes quite a bit of petrol to do the Dakar.
Yeah, because they're in this slightly different class. They're in the main class as well, which is what they wanted to win, but they're in the slightly different class as well. So they get up to 350 litres of fuel a day, whereas...
even they have 350 litres. What does a Toyota use then a day?
500, up to 500.
500.
Yeah.
Well, they start with 500 litres in their tanks. That's
I don't think they wouldn't tell us as a sort of well-kept secret, but the Audi... Because it's a 2-litre engine, only a small engine which charges the batteries all the time.
Yeah.
But it's only revving at 5,000 RPM.
And you hear it on the videos going by, and you hear this sort of constant engine, because it's like a sort of a constant velocity transmission, isn't it? Because it just sits at 1 RPM all the time. So it sounds really weird when it goes. Can you hear the electric motors when it goes past you for real? Do you hear the electric motors?
Do hear some whirring. You do hear some whirring, but not much. We only saw it go past once So it went.
The one survived. There was only one poor Audi. I felt so sorry. I mean, they were favourites, and the car was amazing. But I mean, Carlos Sainz. I mean, what a legend. I mean, I don't know how old is he? He's about 50. Must be 55, getting on for 60. I don't know, but
60.
I mean, he's broken his shoulder. He gets in the helicopter, and then I want to try and finish, and then fly me back and get in the car. And he's out there fixing suspension, lying in the. I mean, I take my hat off to him. Amazing.
You say that because it's Carlos, and I agree with you. World class, one of the best drivers ever. But it's not just him. There are so many unknowns that are doing that on a daily basis, and the spirit of Dakar is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
We saw a guy today getting towed back on a motorbike, and he's covering his face because the quad that's towing him is just kicking up this rooster tail of dirt. He's covering his face. He's broke down. And I said to one of the drivers afterwards, and they said, how can you expect to do 9,000 kilometers in 2 weeks and not help your friend or somebody else in the back do the last 100 kilometers and give them a tow? I saw people in quicksand, biking quicksand, and some guys in a Can-Am stopped, got out and helped him out of the...
Yeah, they do. I know. They all help each other get through.
Absolutely.
A lot of rain again. I'm out in the desert, but it's cold. What was the temperature like today? It looks cold and rainy. Everyone's got anoraks on.
Yeah, yes, they poured down. Today was a little bit better. And we think, Audi think that was a big contributing factor. They didn't set the car up really for rain. They wanted the soft sand. So,
did you have any update? Of course, the other Audi that retired was Stefan Peter Hansel. I mean, his co-driver was injured. Any news on his injury update? Was nothing too serious.
Out of hospital, not too serious now.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're all raring to go. They're already planning 2024, so very upbeat, very positive about 2024. But I think for me, I mean, Nasser Al-Attiyah, but amazing.
That's his fifth win now. That's his third with Toyotas. He's won it with a Mini and he's won it with a Volkswagen. So he's had 3 manufacturers, and he is the master of the desert. You know, he lives in the desert.
You say that, but look at Sebastian Loeb. I mean, you know, not taking any.
Yeah, I agree. Probably the start.
I mean, you said it beautifully yesterday on Twitter that after day 2, he punches, threw his Gaelic shoulders up in the air. My race is finished, and then he won stages in a row.
But Thomas, it's the same happy or sad, isn't it? Yes, I have 3 punches. My rally is over. And then 2 weeks later, yes, I win the stage. I'm up to 2nd place now. He's got the same voice, whether he's got a record number of wins. I don't know who won the stage. Did he win again today? I don't know. He didn't, did he? That Frenchman in a pro drive thing won, didn't he?
It was never going to be one. It was never going to be.
I think Ekstrom was second down the Audi, wasn't he? I think he finished the last day second.
He did, yeah.
But he ended up 14th, the best Audi, 14th. Obviously, he was 6 hours and 51 minutes or something behind the leader with all those trials and tribulations they had. Yes, but hats off to Nasser, though, winning again. Sebastian, probably the driver of the day, and that Hunter.
Do you think
Sebastian Loeb, do
you think Sebastian Loeb is literally the best driver ever? Because we talk about Formula One all the time, and that seems to be how we say, you know, Senna, Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, Verstappen are the best.
He's absolutely up there, because he jumped to the Le Mans car. He was on the pace straight away. You know, I mean, he's just one of these all rounders that can. You know, we'll talk about the Monte Carlo Rally at the end of the programme, because that's what we're looking forward to next weekend. And of course, a year ago, he finished the Dakar, flew back to, 1 week gap from finishing the Dakar where you are now, to being in his rally car and winning the Monte Carlo Rally. Yeah, it was just stunning performance. Stunning.
I heard a lovely little story analogy that the Formula One boys get 1,000 times to perfect one corner, where the rally guys get 1 time to perfect 1,000.
Yeah.
And it's so true. I think I've always had great respect for these sort of drivers anyway, but when you watch these rally drivers, but really we should be when I say we, should be looking outside the box of just the Formula One drivers to say who is the best driver in the world, because these guys are just phenomenal talents. They really are. And
Kyle Larson, I'll come to him in a minute. NASCAR driver, we'll mention him when we come to news in a minute.
We will, but don't forget the other categories as well. The motorbike category had to be the most tense for many years. I mean, as of yesterday, I think there was 3 seconds separating the top.
It was 12 seconds the top. They were teammates, and poor old Toby Price, the Aussie, he got overtaken today on the final day by his Argentinian teammate Kevin Benavides, who won the bike section today by 43 seconds in the end. So he overhauled a 12-second deficit to win by 43 seconds, and that is after a total. I mean, as the other running, because they had the regulation running to get to their stage. The stage is about 3 hours long, but they also have to do about 6 hours sometimes driving too. So that was after 44 hours of the time sections, not all the riding to and from the liaison lengths. After 44 hours of competition, he won by 43 seconds. You imagine that's like two Le Mans 24-hour races or something to win, and that's over sand and going through mud and rivers. And they fall off, and they've all fallen off at several stages and got that's unbelievable.
That's the difference between having a pee and not stopping for a pee. And let me tell you a little story on that, because when they get to the soft sand is when they can actually have a pee, because they don't want to stop unnecessarily. Especially So when they get to the soft sand, they've got to lower the tire pressure to go over the soft sand. That's their opportunity to have a jump. But of course, for the ladies, it's quite difficult. Some ladies in the event, they got to take their whole race. And then we could just unpick it, or if you want to pee, nothing else. But it's all these little things you got to think about as well. But it really was an amazing experience.
Just on the bikes, the third place guy was only 5 minutes behind, and he was quite a Skylar House, this American. I don't know whether you saw pictures of him, you probably didn't see, but he's got the most amazing handlebar moustache. It was a wonderful, huge, like proper old twirly moustache. So he was third in the bikes. And we have, of course, Sam Sunderland, our British champion last year, out on the first stage, off to hospital with a broken shoulder or broken whatever it was. Well, it's an incredibly hard event.
I know it is. And we were in the Paddock Club. Those bikes, just crazy, guys, in the nicest possible way. But we were in the Paddock Club watching all the winners, or watching all the participants, finishers come through, and we didn't see a single British flag, which is really sad.
Oh no,
Argentinian flags, because of course it went to Argentina between South America between 2009 and 2019.
Yeah.
So there's a huge Argentinian contingency.
Massive Spanish as well. The Spanish seems to love doing it. French.
Didn't see any.
No, but there's plenty of competitors.
Yeah, didn't see. And we were there for 3 hours watching all the finishers come through. Which is
so many other winners, which I have researched. There's the quad bike winner and the little funny category 3s and category 4s buggy things winners. Little young kid from Poland, I think, won the TS4s. American ones TS3s. And then the motorbikes, these do your own service bikes, the privateers that fix their own bikes. I mean, all the guys winning out front, they arrive and go to bed while the mechanics rebuild their bikes. But I don't know who won that. But again, there's this self-driving category. There was the classics going through. There's so many other winners we should know the names of them. But I mean, you just see some of the photos of people finishing and just the joy and just getting the finisher's medal for doing it. It's just quite an event. So are we going to truck next year? Then are we going now? The Lovecars truck. Which vehicle are we going to go in?
I think if I had to pick one, you'd want to pick the one of the Audi RSQ e-tron or something, or the Toyota. But the trucks were pretty mega, I have to say. There seemed like so much power in these things. Really good to see.
Physical. I mean, you see the damage. A friend of mine actually did a truck, Paolo Brilliant, which is a racing driver, a big friend of mine. And there was one road that was just sort of rubbed. This was in South America, I think. And just the vibration of their crash helmets. They were just doing this for like 6. They eventually they took their crash helmets off at one stage, which would have been disqualified if they'd been seen, because they were just 6 hours. And you see them landing. It's horrendous. I mean, I'd never do it. I mean, don't invite me, because I will say no. I mean,
we did see, which is just so funny to see. So So after the stages, for those who don't know, when they finish or after the stages, then they drive on public roads to the Parc Fermé or the paddocks. And it was about half an hour drive from the finish to the paddock, the assembly area, and we're all stuck in traffic coming off the motorway, going through this city and Danman, and then we're stuck in traffic lights, and these buggies are just going off onto the pavement. There's police everywhere. They don't care less. No, don't worry about red lights, and they're just cutting them.
Just getting through.
Absolutely brilliant. I think I'll do it in a car if I ever did it. Certainly not a motorcycle or a quad bike. Fair play to those guys. Maybe a camping. Right, let's go on to news then, Tiff. Let's go on to some news. There's quite a bit happening. Do you want to kick it off with
Max's meltdown?
Oh, blimey, it's all kicked off with Max again. He's had a proper meltdown now. For those of you who are due to do a 24-hour Le Mans, virtual Le Mans, all arranged by Le Mans.
He was doing it. They were leading. He was halfway through the race.
He has gone crazy about it, because they had 2 alleged cyber attacks, and they didn't know whether they lost laps or they gained laps.
They get they have read rules of it. If they're disconnected in a certain way, you get your lap back. But then the way he was disconnected, he didn't, apparently. He talked about they prepare for 3 months to do this. I mean, it's incredibly skilled. A lot of racing drivers' names come up. I think, was he teammate with our Autosport winner, I think? And it's just amazing effort. But he kicked off to the organisers, effing and blinding him. Just unbelievably upset by it all.
Yeah, he really was upset. And if you haven't seen it, I mean, it's tiny text on this, but I'm going to write this once. It might get deleted, but who cares? After 5 months of prep to fight for a title, I mean, it gets worse and worse and worse. This is just a disaster. The long, it just really says that it's awful, because it kept disconnecting and it was glitching and it didn't sound like it was particularly good. So. So Max, another.
I think the war in Ukraine is a disaster, Max. I think you're
Max being paid a big sum of money to do this probably isn't.
Oh, is he really? Is he paid?
Oh, he must be paid by the sponsors. That's my
virtual Le Mans. But it's amazing how serious they all take it. I mean, it's a major industry now. There are people earning money racing.
Absolutely huge. I said you should get on a sim, but they do take a bit of getting used to.
I did a charity once. These kids I was trying to stay. I couldn't do within 2 seconds a lap. It was driving me mad. techniques, chopping corners, knowing what you can get away with, experience. They've played these things all their lives.
Yeah.
Back in the real world of Formula One, we finally have a Williams top man. James Vowles has come from Mercedes, inside. He's been Mercedes for about 10 years, I think, through all the good times, but come up to the ranks, and apparently Mercedes are happy to let him go. So with Jos Capito, of course, was open. The door opened. He was pushed out the back door a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, James Vowles, the new man running Mercedes.
That's interesting as well. And another thing was interesting, Williams
running Williams now.
Williams, yeah, exactly. But it's interesting with Williams that Gulf, as in GULF, the very famous McLaren sponsor, are looking to be the sponsor for the Williams car as well.
That's interesting. I heard some stories about watch out for our colours coming soon. So I think it might be the Williams.
Yeah.
Because they were on McLaren, weren't they? Monaco. And that was Martini went to McLaren. That was Gulf. Gulf were on McLaren,
Gulf was still signed with McLaren, but to provide certain oils and lubricants. But I don't know whether they're officially the McLaren car.
That'd be great to see those colours. If the Williams is going to be Gulf colours, magic.
Do you think they'll move away from the blue and white? I guess they'll have to if they're Gulf, won't they? Or they'll just have
yeah.
But the inside track is that it's a done deal. But we've heard
no other news in F1. The only other news I've got is Kyle Larson, my NASCAR boy, which I'm always talking about. So Kyle, who I always said he's a natural talent. I've told you this. He does dirt racing. He's got a deal to run Indy 500 in 2024 from his team owner, from his Hendrick, his team owner. So they put it in a McLaren team, fourth car, McLaren team. And he's even hinted that he doesn't want this to be looked at as a one-off. So he's obviously got ideas of doing more IndyCar. But he's also one of the drivers, it's been done before, that on the same day as the Indy 500, there's a famous NASCAR 600-mile race down at Charlotte. And I think Kurt Busch was last to do it. And they try to do both races. He is going to also try to do both races, do the Indy 500, then jump in a helicopter and go down to Charlotte and do another 600 miles in a NASCAR. I mean, 1,100 miles of competitive racing if it works out.
That's crazy.
So,
I wonder what the most distance ever driven in one day is. Not competitive racing and driving is
there was a Nürburgring 84-hour race in the 50s and 60s in saloon cars and touring cars. So I don't know what I suppose when you run out of fuel, you've run out of time. But
well, good luck to number 5, Kyle Larson. Will he be number 5 in both races?
Well, I doubt if he can get that. That's because the number 5 is the team owner's number, so it's very much owners' numbers in NASCAR.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know that. It's good to know. There was some proper racing this weekend with Formula E in Mexico.
A surprising amount, not just Formula E, but single-seaters kicked off in the Middle East, just up the road from you. These kids, these children coming out, we'll come to that later as well. But,
they're not.
Aren't they back at school at the moment? Aren't they supposed January? Isn't that school time, I think, back at school?
Children, they're young drivers.
Well, 15 and 16, half of them. 90 young drivers, 90. We'll come to that later. Let's talk about Formula E.
Okay, let's come back to that in a moment. Formula E.
Formula E. So it's the all-new Gen 3. We talked about it last week, and, will it be any better? Will it be any different? I told you to try to keep walking, give it another chance. Well, I've given it another chance. And it's not much different. I mean, actually, the cars are a lot friskier. They've got a bit more power. They're lighter. They look like little arrows. They still look a bit weird. And they've got these wings, the awful wings out the front, which I'm sure one did get knocked off in the race, we'll mention. So they were quicker, or they maybe not lap times, because the hand-cooked tyres are a bit harder. So on their own, they look quite fun to drive. But the race was just a procession. They're all just, because they got to, regen. But apart from pushing out front, Jake Dennis, the Andretti driver, just blew them all away. I mean, he qualified second. When he got in the lead, he could just pull away. So he was able to lap using the same energy all the other drivers for Andretti. So that was good news for Andretti, trying to get into Formula One. They're winning Formula E. And it's just great to see Jake Dennis win. He won it so easy at the canter in the end. And he's one of these drivers that sort of, how did he get that? Because we were talking about, Nick de Vries coming back to Formula One, having been a star. Well, I mean, Jake Dennis was one of these kids. In 2012, he was the Autosport Young Driver Award. And that's 11 years ago now. He was the star of 2012. He won a Formula Renault Championship. He finished third in the Formula 3 Championship in 2015. In a championship, interesting, the names of that year. So he's the odd one out here because he came third. Felix Rosenqvist won the Formula 3 Championship, and now an IndyCar star. Antonio Giovinazzi was second, who went on to be Grand Prix driver. A certain Charles Leclerc was fourth, one place behind Jake Dennis. In fifth place was some bloke called Lance Stroll, whose daddy bought him a Formula 3 car. In sixth place was George Russell. And in seventh was Alexander Albon. Wow. So for 7 drivers that finished the top 7 places in the 2015 Formula 3, Jake's the odd one out that seemed to get lost. It must be so frustrating when you like him that you see these your colleagues, going up the ladder. But anyway, he sort of drifted off, didn't get another drive when he finished third in 2015. He started doing the LMP2s and GT and DTM, and then he became a Red Bull simulator driver and Aston Martin simulator driver. And I don't know how he then got the Andretti drive, but he suddenly got the link to go and drive the Andretti Formula E car 2 seasons ago now. This is his 3rd season with Andretti now. And he won 2 races at WC, he won 1 race last year. But that first win in Formula E 2 years ago was his first single-seater win since 2016. So he'd gone like 6 years without winning a single-seater. You must think, I'm just going to be a GT driver. But he's now earning considerable sums of money. That's a great thing about Formula E. It's giving these kids that didn't get the breaks, didn't get into Formula One. And maybe, after Nick de Vries, maybe Jake Dennis will think, hold on, I'm just winning for Andretti in Formula E, and Andretti want a Grand Prix team. He may well be dreaming that he could be an Andretti Grand Prix driver in 2026. I think it's a fabulous story just for that. And that's what Formula E does give. Some of these drivers, they're earning a lot of money. But I mean, the noise,
what was it like
droning around, is terrible. The sound of the tyres seems louder this year. They're more squeaky, the tyres. You got that amazing Mexico, the other sort of round where it used to be a football stadium, I think, the incredible grandstands. And it was full up again, like in the Formula One. They must charge $1 for entry. I can't believe they spend much money. But
yeah, what they charge. Great to see the grandstands full.
Yeah, always good to see grandstands full. So it wasn't that exciting. There was a good battle for third. Pascal Wehrlein came through for second, the Porsche. But Lucas di Grassi was struggling for grip. But he held up this train of cars. They included Jake Hughes doing really well, making his debut for McLaren, who was running fourth. But nobody could get by di Grassi. Di Grassi just was a roadblock. It was a train. And of course, with these open wheels now, the old sort of dive-by barge pass isn't quite so easy to do. So they just couldn't get by. They couldn't move me. He would sort of brake really early and regen when he could, and hold him on behind him with his elbows out. Then when he got to the straights, he had enough power to keep ahead of them. So he did well. So anyway, Jake Hughes finished 5th. Other Brits, Rowland 13th, Tictum 17th, Sam Bird retired. Poor old Robin Frins became the first person to break a new nose on the opening lap. But he also broke his wrist at the same time. He went to the back of a car in front. And that's been, I broke my arm. My only breakage of my whole racing career was breaking an arm, because when you hit something, when you hold the steering wheel, it kicks the steering wheel. Yeah. Which is why a lot of drivers, let hands off the wheel before you hit the wall. So I hope Robin will get his wrist broken, cured as soon as possible. So didn't look much different. Seemed very similar. Well, and then when it's driving me mad, I went to the website to try and get some results, which seems so hard to find. And I started looking at the way they advertise it, And it's one of the headlines on their website is 45 minutes of 200-mile-an-hour entertainment. And when it explains that, I tried to find out the new regulations, so I looked how it explained the formula. And even then, it said, races in excess of 200 miles an hour in the races. Now, I know that thing's capable of doing 200 miles an hour down a 20-mile runway, or, it's not doing 200 miles an hour. And I think it's when they throw those things at you, it makes you more anti the formula. They sort of, it is hyping things that don't produce. It's just, I think that doesn't work. I think their website people should just back off a bit, just back off.
It's the marketeers spinning it, isn't it? It's
yeah. But that's a blatant lie, They're not going over 200 miles an hour in the races. Yeah. The car might be capable of it, but, they're not racing at Indianapolis or Daytona.
So who won? What manufacturer's looking good?
Well, it's Andretti, so I don't know, but they're all the same chassis. It's just all you do is your software and your motor. Some of them got different motors. I don't know. He's got Porsche. The Porsche engines were doing quite well. Maybe he's got a Porsche engine. Sorry,
Cupra.
Cupra are bad. They were down the bottom. Abt Cupra.
Be nice to Cupra, because I think they're the only ones that would probably give us an invitation to a Formula E event.
Well, they're about 15th and 16th, I think.
Is it actually? It's a very good looking car.
They all look the same.
Well, it's a nice livery.
I'm saying a nice livery.
It's a very nice
livery. All right.
All right. So 90 young drivers, not children, 90
yes.
young drivers kicked off the winter single-seater season.
So this is going back to the females we talked about, women in racing. And this is why there are no Formula Grand Prix driving women in Formula One. Because, and it's down to the parents. So there's 90 drivers. There's the Formula 4 Championship, 160 horsepower, UAE. There's the Formula Regional Middle East, 270 horsepower. And there's the Formula Regional Oceania down in New Zealand. All those kicked off. They're all 5 weekends, 3 races of thing. So it's 15 races running through January, February, all 3 of these championships. And I said there's 90 kids out there. Now, they're only there because their parents or their parents' friends have paid for it. And it's not blaming motorsport that women aren't in it. It's the parents or the daughters don't want to do it. You can't force parents to force their girls to go out and be single-seater racing drivers. So that all these kids are out there because daddy or daddy's friends are paying for it. It's as simple as that to get into motorsport. Anyway, after that quick soapbox, the UAE, the best series is probably the UAE Formula 4s, with 48 drivers in that championship alone. And all the races in Dubai or Kuwait or Abu Dhabi. There's not many Brits in it. Again, not many women, not many girls, not many British drivers. There's only two, in fact, in that series.
6 women drivers out of the whole 90, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah. Four in the Formula 4 race and a couple down in New Zealand.
But I get it. We spoke about this last week about women in motorsport, and typically, and this is only typically, you're going to encourage your daughter, if you've got a few quid, or even if you haven't, to do something like hockey or horse riding or something. That's what you're typically going to do.
We can't force them. We can't force 8-year-old girls. You go to go-kart. You can't force them.
You can encourage them to do that. But if the only time typically you would get your daughter to do it is if you have an interest in the sport. But the daughters normally go with the mum, and I know that's not always the case, and follow in their footsteps. So it's hard. It's a hard enough track, but we've got to go on merit. We've always said this: the meritocracy.
Yeah.
We've got to go on merit. Who's the best? Put them in the best for the best drive. So that's. But anyway, that's my little soapbox.
I agree. And the star that came out of Formula 4, and I think I don't want to be a racing commentator if Hugo goes any further in life. Now, he's a McLaren junior. That's the way you can get sponsored, because there's also a Red Bull kid that won one of the races. Because if you do well in karting and you win championships, not just finish 10th and 12th and do well, you can pick up these scholarships. He's a McLaren junior. And he's an interesting kid because he's, I think he's an American. I wrote it down somewhere and I've lost it. Oh, that's right. He's got a Nigerian mother and an Italian father, but he's very much an American kid. He's obviously starred over in America, and he's got this McLaren Junior backing. His name is Hugo Chukwu. Sorry, Hugo, pronouncing your name wrong, but that's how it reads. Hugo Chukwu. And he came over the first time to Europe. He did British Formula 4 last year, and he finished 3rd in that championship. Anyway, he won 2 of the races. Obviously, an incredible talent coming up through the ranks. And the other winner was actually running on a British license. I think we're so mixed up nowadays with our nationalities. Arvid Lindblad, who's half Indian, half Swede, but now races for Britain. So he's British according to the intro, but he's actually got an Indian and a Swedish parent. And he's got a Red Bull scholarship. So he's obviously one of the Red Bulls. So these are the names that are now down in Formula 4. This is where girls should be. If girls were good enough in karting, they would be the Hugo or the Arvid, winning Formula 4 UAE in January and maybe becoming a superstar in the future. So, 48 drivers. The only other Brit was Alex Dunn, a very talented British driver, but he didn't have a good weekend. Then the Formula Regional Middle East Championship. Swede Dino Berganovic won one race, and Harry Boyer won another, and Nikhil Bora. No Brits. The only Brit we got was Taylor Barnard in that. And Adrian Neat didn't do so well. Then down in New Zealand, two girls out there, Chloe Chambers, American girl, and Brianna Morris, the New Zealand girl, who won a regional championship. So she won a Formula 4 championship, but none of these girls managed to scare the podium.
Anyone
and a couple of Kiwis won. No. One interesting thing, it's funny how you can suddenly be a star. Because these kids get around the world with these parents' money. Because David Morales, that's been doing GB3 in England, I think, for 2 years. And last year, He finished 22nd in GB3. So you think, Dad, you're wasting your money. Well, he won one of the races out in New Zealand. It was only 50. It's a 15-car field, but he won one of the races. He's got the Kiwi hot shots.
Look at James Cook in the Caterham racing. He was always there or thereabouts, but he won a race, and it just all the moons aligned for him, and he won a race.
Yep.
in my class, in my category, and you would never put him down as a race winner.
No.
But he didn't. He was always there, but he was never sort of a race winner, setting that records or anything. But it's
the other two races, won by Kiwi locals. Josh Mason's the only Brit out there. But again, they're kids, 15, 16 years old, swanning around the world, and it costs a lot of money. I'd hate to think what a 5-weekend budget in the Middle East for a kid. Got to be a father's got to go with you, a parent, someone's got to look after you, haven't they?
Of course.
And running the team must be a sort of 100, 200,000 pound budget to do that series. I've no idea.
They're not going to travel in economy like you and I, like the peasants.
Anyway, it's fascinating. It's fascinating that there are 90 young drivers every weekend for the next 5 weekends racing around the world.
Absolutely incredible. Good for them. Right, can we move on, please, to the Dubai 24 Hours?
Dubai, that went round and round. GT3s.
53 cars went round and round and round.
Yeah.
Did you?
It was a GT3 is the top class. There's 53. There's 5 classes. They've even got front wheel drive TCR, the World Touring Car race. It's a funny sort of race. I think it's one of the ones where you fuel out the back of the pits. I think there's no fueling in the pits. You have to drive around the back and get topped up in a garage. And BMW won it, Porsche second, BMW third, Porsche fourth, Audi fifth, Porsche sixth. Best Mercedes 8th, very much a German-dominated sort of series, this 24 Hours. There's only one Ferrari, I think, in the entry, one McLaren. So actually, it's quite interesting. I'm going to cough. Where's my microphone? I need to cough. I've got a tickly throat. I cough.
Yeah, that's because you're drinking alcohol. See, I hope you
cheers. Sorry, cheers. Just nice red. Oh.
Well, I can top trump your alcohol. Look at this. This is our host from Audi, and you can keep all the alcohol. Look at the divine host we've had from Audi, and it's her birthday today. Just celebrating the lovely Madeleine's birthday.
So you're having an orange juice celebration.
We have mocktails.
But now that TCR car, the winner of the TCR car, it was Audi RS3. Good news for Audi. Go tell them quick. Get the party going again. Audi won the TCR,
wasn't it?
Round. So the fastest, they're 12 seconds a lap slower than the GT3 leaders. So you were 60 laps down by the end of the race. And they got lapped every 10 laps, the same guy. So the winner of the TCR was lapped every 10 laps. But I love that. That's old-fashioned Le Mans, old-fashioned Daytona. That's just old-fashioned 24-hour racing where, you have this huge discrepancy in the fastest cars and the slowest cars. So that's great. Wonderful sort of, amateur,
a lot of
semi-pro.
Mirrors, a lot of dodging cars when it's like that.
Yep.
Next weekend, World Rally. In fact, this is this week, isn't it? World Rally
coming up, starting 7:05 p.m. Thursday night. The Monte Carlo Rally to Monte Carlo or bust. Absolutely wonderful. Again, it's going to be so exciting. But it's sad. There's only 10 cars, in the top class. 10 potential winners. Well, 9. When I tell you about the 10th, he won't be winning. Toyota got 4 cars: Robin Pera, Elfyn Evans, Ogier, who's not doing the whole season, Sebastian Ogier, and of course their Japanese boy Takamoto Katsuta. Hyundai have got 3 cars: Thierry Neuville and Daniel Sordo.
Hyundai, haven't you not seen
Hyundai now? Oh, I don't change. On the TV adverts, they're calling Skoda now. I don't know. That's Neuville, Sordo, and Escapacalapi, the Finn.
I'm so glad
Ford,
names.
the big Ford now have got Tanak, so he's the guy that's come out of Hyundai, the Estonian former champion. So that's really interesting for Ford, because Ford won Monte Carlo Rally last year with Sebastian Loeb, but then of course had a pretty average rest of the year and got worse and worse as the season went on. So Tanak's back, so that's the big story. Can Tanak take the Ford back to the glory days? He's got a French co-driver, Pierre-Louis Loubet. But the third driver of Ford, you might not have heard this name. He's called Jordan Serdaridis. He's a Greek driver. He's not exactly an up-and-coming young star because he's actually 58 years old.
Wow.
But he's obviously a very, very wealthy Greek private. He's actually done World Rally Championship for 10 years as a privateer. So he decided, well, I'm going to buy myself a proper car for one weekend at least a year. So I'm all up. I mean, I think it's fantastic when you get people like this. Have a go.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how far off the pace he is, because he is going to be a long way off the pace.
Yeah. So I said 10 Class 1 cars. But of course, the RC2, very competitive, great to watch that. They always finish in the top 10 towards the end. We got Chris Ingram, the British driver, in that. He was seventh in Monte Carlo last year, RC2, and seventh overall championship. But the sad thing, we got Chris Ingram and we got Alfred Evans, and those are the only two drivers out of 75 entries. When you think Monte Carlo used to be half Brits, I mean, we almost invented Monte Carlo and bust. So, yes, I mean, the rally world, I think, the British Championship is quite small. Gus Greensmith is out of the Ford now, and he's actually going to come back to WRC2. I think he's debuting in Mexico in a Skoda. But, yeah, I think there's no money for young British drivers. We don't have Rally GB anymore. And, I can't see the next Chris Ingram can, really turn things up. Or we've got a guy in WRC2, Alexander, who was doing well last year. So it's a shame, not a lot of British interest, but obviously spectacular filming. Yes. The other thing of note next weekend to watch out was the Daytona test. And this is, of course, the first time we're seeing these new Porsche and BMW cars. This is the half. The World Championship includes LMH, with hybrids like Toyota and Peugeot, and also LMDH, which is the American formula, which they call GTP. It's very confusing in the sports car world. So on the testing, we got these new cars from Porsche, Cadillac, Acura, which is Honda, and BMW. They'll be racing on their own at Daytona, and then at Sebring, they'll be mixing with the Toyotas, Peugeots, and Ferrari, of course, when the whole world sports cars. It's a new, exciting world of sports cars. And
they won't be giving much away next weekend, though, will they?
It'd be interesting to see it half begins. And these are the great days of, buying a Porsche 956 or 962. These Porsches, that's the idea. There'll be customer cars you can buy, like the good old days, and a private team can go out and compete for world championships. So
why aren't we rich? Why can't we do these sort of things? Buy nice cars and go in the Dakar Rally and.
It's your job. Your job. You're in charge of finances.
I'm an absolute. That's a disaster. That is a disaster. Right, I'm going to leave you with that. Look at that Dakar Tiff lanyard. This is my lanyard.
Yeah, I'll leave you with this. Cheers, Paul.
Thanks for joining.
Cheers, everyone. All of us.